In every business, there's always seems to be more to do than there is time or resources to get them done. This is especially true for smaller businesses and solopreneurs. Shoot, I still had this problem when I had a team of 22 full-time employees. So what is it that we are trying to do to help me peel back the onion on this proverbial chicken and egg issue is Sarah Duran. She is a freelance project manager and solopreneur coach. She's an operational expert and has been a project strategist for over a decade, designing and leading projects for various organizations, helping businesses refine systems and processes. She started her company, Fruition Initiatives, to help businesses turn their ideas into action. She joins us today to discuss how to better manage time and resources in our businesses. So, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh man, no, thanks for coming. Where are you located? You
I
look
am just
sunny
out
there.
I'm just outside of Denver, Colorado. It's actually pretty cloudy, but I have a window like right there, which is why it looks sunny.
Very good. Gotcha. Awesome. I didn't see a big sweater like I have. I'm in Springfield, Illinois, a little bit more north there, and it's a little chilly today. But you're outside of Denver, so it's high and cold, correct?
Yes, it is not warm. It is not warm today by any stretch of the imagination.
Awesome. So you work from home then, huh? You're free. You said you're a freelancer.
Yep, I'm a freelancer, so I exclusively work from home.
Nice. How long you been doing that now? You said a decade, but was it always been as a freelancer?
So I've been a project manager for it's probably over a decade now, probably pushing close to 12, 13 years there, but I've been working for myself for it'll be 8 years this year.
Okay, great. So now that you've been working with, so you basically work with other entrepreneurs, do you think we have a lot going on, right? We have all these dreams and we have all these objectives that we set for us. And do you think that we try to do too much at any given time? Or are we just bad at managing all the projects on our plate?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I think it also probably varies by person, and for any individual entrepreneur, it's going to vary at any point in your journey depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, so go ahead and dive in a little bit about that. Let's take an example. Let's talk about solopreneurs first. What do is it that they're just trying to do too much on their own, or is it that they can't prioritize it well?
I think that for solopreneurs in particular, it's really hard to think about scaling and delegating. So if you're thinking about if you're a person like me who's not really I'm not really interested in like growing some sort of like huge company, right? So I'm
Mhm,
pretty limited to what I do. That doesn't mean I don't
mhm,
partner with people. It doesn't mean I don't have a VA or like other people that help me out here
mhm,
and there, but primarily I'm doing mostly what I do for myself by myself. And so that means that I have to be really strategic about what I take on. And it also means I have to be really strategic about the systems I put in place to achieve my goals. I also think that solopreneurs, I'm a project manager, so it's pretty natural for me. Like systems are just the way I think. Process is just the
sure.
way I operate. It's definitely
Mhm,
not true for everyone. And so I think that definitely I work with a lot of creative solopreneurs, folks who have gone out on their own to be able to like do the creative work they want to do and actually get paid for it. A
mhm,
lot of those folks aren't always great at systems and processes just because like they're right-brained folks, like they're creative. And a lot of times the actual day-to-day of running their business gets in the way of them doing the work that they went out on their own to do. And so I think that it depends on the type of person you are, whether you are like a systems and process thinker or whether you're not. Either either one of those scenarios, you're definitely going to benefit from a thinking about delegating and bringing in folks to help you, even if you're not building a full team, and b really thinking about how do you systematize your work. And I guess there's a c, which I think you mentioned, like how do you prioritize. For me, this is like more of a business model question of like how do you
mhm,
prioritize the type of work you do and how you do it, that you're
mhm.
maximizing the amount of time you have to actually do what you're best at.
And I think that bleeds into when you start having an in-house team as well. And I think that there's people who are solopreneurs that are doing everything. They're not doing 100% everything. They're
Totally.
delegating to a freelance X project management. Is that you're
Mhm.
a freelancer for them. You're doing some project management for them so they can be in the weeds of whatever they do. So like a designer needs to design. So it's like, hey, can you manage the other pieces of the project for me? And so as we get past being a solopreneur and we start bringing on employees, doing that because there's more to do. And I take that back. It is because we have so much to do that we need somebody there on a constant basis in front
Right.
of us. So a lot of people, they're like, I need somebody right here. Now in the virtual world, I feel that we are learning how to utilize VAs and freelancers for the things we might not need somebody maybe 20 hours a week, which is probably the minimum anybody would really want to work at a company. But we can have somebody like you where it's, I'll give you a few hours here, I'll give this other person a few hours here. And so now we're outsourcing these small pieces that allow us to open up our bandwidth. But then I still feel like we empty the glass of bandwidth, right? We just fill it back up.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
Which is maddening because I do it myself. I'm like, oh wow, look at all this time. Oh, there's this passion project all of a sudden I'm going to now go ahead and grab and put on my plate, only to then go, oh crap, something blew up and now we have to, or we get a big project, right? One or the two is either crisis or opportunity come, and it's, oh, but we either have to do this or we really want to do this. But you just put in this passion project in front of you as an entrepreneur, and now you can't just stop it.
Mhm.
You say, oh, I can push through it. So how can we better prioritize all of the things we want done seemingly at the same time in our business?
The way I usually coach people on this kind of thing is really getting clear. And this is whether you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, like with a team. But say
Mm-hmm.
that when you're starting out and then something that you should be thinking about at least annually, if not more, is just like really rethinking what you want to be doing, what you
Mm-hmm.
love, and what you're good at. And that when you have a team doesn't mean that what you are good at is the only thing that you do, right? That's the whole point of
Right.
having a team. But I think that a lot of us fall into a trap of just like chasing shiny objects. Or when you're, especially in the solopreneur case, but I think this applies to entrepreneurs too, you get into this feast famine mentality where any opportunity that knocks on your door, you feel like you have to say yes to. Even if it's something that maybe you're not that thrilled about, or you're like, I'm actually not that great at this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Or in a lot of cases, I think it's something that you maybe are really good at, but you just don't like doing. And you're like, oh, it won't take me that much time. It's super easy. I'll just, whatever it is. And so I think it's like evaluating what your priorities are and why you want to be, what is the why of your business. With when you're a solopreneur, that's like your why, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? And having that and reevaluating that constantly gives you this litmus test where you can gut check yourself when those kinds of things come down the pike to say, do I really want to do this? I
Or
think
is it really why I'm in business? Like, is this the
exactly.
vision of the company?
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's hard to say no to stuff. Like I find myself doing it all the time where I'm like, "Oh, I'm just going to like I'm at capacity. I'm at capacity." And then something like I get an email or I have a coffee with someone and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I could just squeeze that in like over here." And
Mm,
sometimes that makes sense, right? Like sometimes it's something that for whatever reason, it's something that is new and exciting, or it's something where you're making a really important connection with someone that could lead to future work moving
mhm.
forward, whatever it is. Like sometimes you just have to figure that out. But I think that a lot of us don't have that explicit like statement for ourselves.
Mm,
Like, this is
mhm.
why I do this and this is what I want to be doing, in order to like just gut check ourselves as we move forward.
I love that. Like the personal gut check, I think is like the hardest thing to do, right? We get into the mind, like you were saying, like there's this opportunity and I know I'm at capacity, but it's good for my business. But like for you, you're a lifestyle business, right? For me, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to build my business beyond me. And I have a couple times now. And so I guess technically I'm a serialpreneur. There you go. So there's all these new words. I'm technically a veterapreneur too, because I was in the military before I was a business owner. So anyway, I digress. So when we do the gut check on the personal side of what we should be doing in our business, I
Mhm.
think is what I'm hearing you say. But then it's like the vision of the business. Why is the business even exist?
Yeah.
If we can't stay clear on that vision, I think that we get sidetracked with all the shiny objects you were talking
Oh,
about.
yeah. Yeah.
And so when you feel like your team is stretched thin, I would almost think that we need to go back to our vision and our mission and say, and then compare that to all the objectives we have on our plate and say, are all of these feeding directly to our mission and our vision?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of folks get, when you're going from solopreneur to entrepreneur, when you're starting to scale, that gets really cloudy. Like
Hmm.
your why and your vision versus the vision for your company, and once you have other people working for you and depending on you, I think that can get cloudy for people. And I think a lot of people that like find themselves just like hire, you're just like, okay, I need more support, so I'm going to hire someone, and then all of a sudden you have a team and your company, not a solopreneur anymore. You don't always go, I think especially small businesses, you don't always go through the like due diligence of making a strategic plan, like figuring out what you're doing here. And that leads, which totally fall like wraps around to the project management stuff. It leads to you like having a scattershot approach where you're not being intentional about what you're doing, and you're just like you said, picking up those or following those shiny objects and picking up whatever comes down the pike. And so I do think that it is a critical thing when you're, I think it's critical no matter where you're at on the entrepreneur spectrum, but
Mhm.
especially when you move from solopreneur to company, you have to think differently about that, and you need to like think super intentionally about it, because you're not the only one who's depending on that anymore.
And I think that we grow our businesses for the sake of growth a lot of times, right? Oh,
Mhm.
we're hot. We've got a groove on. And then as a solopreneur, we do things, we manage projects a certain way when it's just us. And one of the things that I ran into as I was growing, I went from 2 of us to 22 of us, and we had a period of time where we were adding people about once every 6 months for many years, and we got up to about 12 in the first 10 years. And then we were adding 2 or 3 a year. And within a matter of 2.5 years, we doubled in size. And so between the 2 of us and the 22 of us, things just work different. So I think it's important for the listeners to really take note of if you've grown your business at any rate, and as far as how many people are in and around getting business done, you have to take a look at how things are done, because the more people that are in the mix, the more complex your project management has to be, because there's quality assurance, there's timelines, there's more resources, and you got to make sure that the resources aren't bleeding,
Yep,
and who is in charge and making sure those resources aren't just sitting around wasting you money.
totally.
And finding there's people I found when I did a reorganization a few years ago, and when we just basically let everybody go home and said, hey, if you want to work remote, we're here for you to continue to do that. If you want to get another job, we'll help you do that too. Not a problem. But then when we had a smaller team, we started looking at what was not getting done. Holy cow. We had holes in our project management, even though we had the software and we had people responsible for checking on things and things were getting done, but we had more people than we actually needed.
Yep.
And so once we have our priorities straight, what are the best ways for us to approach multiple objectives in our business, regardless of our size?
It's such a good question. I think that the first thing is, once you get your priorities straight, and this can either be like a systems development type of thing or an audit type of thing, depending on where you are in the trajectory of your business. But really, I think like you said, like a lot of people just bring on, whether it's people or platforms or whatever you think is going to be that like silver bullet that fixes the problem, and
Mhm.
you end up with like 7 different project management platforms and this CRM over here, and like what, like just all the things, plus like a bunch of different people that you have like filling those holes. And so I think that if you're starting, like in an ideal world, if you're starting out from the beginning, you're thinking really intentionally about your systems and what they are, what gaps they're filling, and who's in charge of them. If you're in if you're in it, which is where I think most people get, like inevitably you're just like, okay, I'm going to just get this thing, fix this thing, stop like these leaks. And then you get like a year or two in and you're like, okay, we've got like a bunch of stuff, but it is still not working. One of the things that I will do with folks is do what I call like an operations audit, where you just go through all of the systems that the company is using. And you think about, why are we using this? What is it doing? Is it working? Is it not working? A lot of times what I'll do when I do that with folks too is interview key staff and sometimes clients too, just to talk about what do you see as like the operational strengths and weaknesses of this company, and where do you think the gaps are? What comes out of that is usually a plan for streamlining things. So usually you're subtracting things, not necessarily people, but subtracting. Usually it's like apps and platforms, or like things, shiny objects that folks got to think that they're fixing a gap, but that they're not actually using. The other thing I would say is an operations person, like a systems type, process type thinker at the top. And so I think a lot of people don't underestimate the importance of having some type of figure at the
Mhm.
top. It doesn't have to be a full-time person. There's all kinds of folks that nowadays do like fractional, you can have a fractional CEO of your
Mhm.
company, which is again the beauty of the freelance talent pool right
Mhm.
now in the economy. But having some sort of systems level operations thinker at the top is super important. Unless like you as the founder, if your brain works that way, then maybe you are that person. But like I said, not
Right.
everyone's brain works that way. And I think when the big picture thinkers that usually end up being founders of companies aren't always great at operationalizing things, and you end up hiring lower level people to do the operationalizing instead of investing in having someone closer to the top that is really overseeing an entire operational strategy.
That's good right there. We'll call it a good. It was awesome.